Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be creating this slimline style card using tiny gift box critters. I love these critters from Lawn Fawn. You can use the dies to dress up the tiny gift box, which is the perfect size for like a truffle or some little candies and things like that. And also it's just really fun to use the critters flat on cards. Kind of gives that kind of graphic kind of look, and it's just really fun. So I'm going to use quite a few. Most of these are newer, and I say newer, but they've been released over the last few releases, not months, releases. So they're not super new, but I don't think I've used any of these yet. And so it was really fun to break these out and use them today. I am inking up the tiny gift box critter hedgehog here. I have die cut him from some vanilla malt and chocolate bar Lawn Fawn cardstock, and then the dark part of this I am inking up with a nice dark walnut ink from Lawn Fawn. You just want a dark brown ink that will darken the edges. I probably could have even gone black. Probably should have done maybe a black here on the edges that would stay showing up a little better. I think as this ink dried and absorbed into the cardstock, because I am using dye inks to ink, it faded a lot. Now for the face of the hedgehog, I actually started out inking up the vanilla malt cardstock with some sugar cookie ink from Lawn Fawn. Most of my inks are from Lawn Fawn today, with the exception, I think, of maybe two colors, which I will note when we get there. And I started to glue it down in place. In fact, I had glue all over the back, and I ended up wiping it off with my finger because I just did not think the color was quite right. I think I need a combination of inks, and the combination really works here. So the sugar cookie added a nice kind of yellow undertone, and then we're going to take some pizza crust, a nice light tan color, and go over that, maybe not quite as far in, which is going to give us you know, the vanilla malt base, and then the sugar cookie and pizza crust colors blended together really add a lot here. And then I dumped my glue over and got glue everywhere. Luckily not on my project, just on my fingers and everywhere else. My glass work surface, so let me clean that up really quick. It happens. And a little glue around the eye as well. So I'm just using a Tombow mono eraser to erase that dry glue there. And you'll notice I didn't pop out the insides of the ears yet. I should have done the ears, because I'm going to have to remove those, or the eyes and the nose mouth. Those I actually want to leave those pieces in because I like to build those up for a little bit of dimension. So we'll layer on some black licorice eyes and nose and mouth on top here in just a second, but I will inlay that little vanilla malt eye back in place so it's all nice and even. Now for the ears, I didn't really want the little pink insides of the ears to stick up necessarily. I'd like those to be inlaid. So I took the tip of my Spellbinders tool-in-one and removed those pretty quickly after I added this piece on there before the glue had dried. Then we're just going to pop those little pink pieces right in. I really like how that looks. I'm not sure that it shows up that great on camera, but in person, the light pink there is really cute. I've also die cut some little pink oval cheeks that we're going to be adding to each of the critters just to give them a little more personality. Dressing up the faces of these critters is one of my favorite parts of this project. Then we're going to layer on the black licorice pieces, which are the eyes and the nose and the mouth. And then we're going to draw in some eyelashes with a fine tip black pen and add some white pen detail around our hedgehog. We are going to add some little highlights to the eyes, the nose, some little white highlights, you know, just around. I'm going to do this on actually on each of the critters, trios of white dots on the cheeks, fun little things like that that add a little bit of character and just a special little touch to this card. I know I've mentioned this many times and a lot when I do my making the cut videos for Simon Says Stamp. Die cutting is one of my very, very favorite things. And so trying to find ways to use dies in fun ways is one of my favorite things to do. I've actually done several cards over the last few years as Lawn Fawn brought out the tiny gift box set and then have added add-ons periodically where I have done cards with these critters just to show how easy it is to take something that's made for a dimensional type of project and use it for a flat card. I will link to some of those down in the description box below the video here on YouTube if you want to check some of those other projects out. Maybe you have some of those past tiny gift box critters, or maybe you're just getting into them and you want to see some other ideas and fun things you can do. Definitely check out those videos. My big rectangle here is from the large Slimline with sliders Lawn Fawn die set. I did die cut that from smooth white cardstock, and I'm taking the Slimline Cloudy stencil. There's actually two different stencils in this set. I'm using one of the two, and I'm just flipping it back and forth to create my clouds on this panel. I am using some Mermaid Lawn Fawn ink and my ink blending tool to add that color. Stencils are such a great way to build an interesting background without adding a lot of extra layers. In the case of this card, we are going to have a layer of grass down along the bottom edge of the card, which is going to help disguise and kind of hide the square edge along the bottom of the critters. However, I don't want to try to layer these very layered critters over a die cut layered background. It just doesn't lay quite as nice, and so I was looking for a way to add interest and build a scene without having to have a lot of layers. So my cute little hedgehog, I'm kind of figuring out placement. I figured about 4 of these critters was going to fit across my slimline style card. Part of the reason I picked a slimline style card is because of trying to fit multiple critters. And then I'm going to take this grassy border that I did die cut using a Slimline Grassy Hillside border die. I love that Lawn Fawn is adding more Slimline style dies, stencils, and things like that to their collection that works with the super popular Slimline style. These are all favorites from the regular line of dies from Lawn Fawn. They have the Hillside stencils and things. So I love that there's a Slimline style for that now. I inked up the edge of my grass with Midnight Green Simon Says Stamp ink. It's just a very deep dark green ink so that it would show up. This inking actually did show up more. I really should have probably used a darker ink on my hedgehog. Now I'm going to be building our tiny gift box bee. I love the little bumblebee. The head of the bumblebee was die cut from Lawn Fawn Sunflower cardstock, and then I am inking up the edges with number 2 pencil ink. Then we've got some black pieces to layer along the top and the bottom of our bumblebee, and then the antenna piece that fits behind. We, of course, will be adding the eyes and the mouth out of black cardstock, the cheeks out of some Hero Arts Peony cardstock, and the wings, my favorite part of the bumblebee, were die cut from Lawn Fawn Pearlescent Vellum. It is my favorite vellum to use for translucent wings because it has a little bit of shimmer and shine to it, a little bit different than regular vellum. I save every little piece of this pearlescent vellum because I just love it so much, and it works great for little die cuts like this. That little antenna piece fits right behind. There's a little place to add glue, and then the antenna stick up from the bee. Then we're just going to layer the wings back behind our little bumblebee here. And just like for the hedgehog, we are going to try to leave the yellow eyes and mouth in place and just layer the black ones on top. So even if the yellow ones, they popped out, I'm going to go ahead and inlay those back in place, because that little bit of dimension that this provides when you layer the next piece of cardstock on top, I just really love it. A very simple way to add some dimension. I am going to do every other and not have my two winged critters right next to each other, since they do take up a little more room. I think if you were not going to use winged critters, you could maybe even get 5 of these across a slimline style card. 4 just fit very comfortably, and like I said, especially with the ladybug and bumblebee wings, it fits a lot better using only 4. For the box, there are stripes that you can build for the bumblebee, which are so cute. And of course, then we're going to take our white pen and add some little detail then to the bumblebee, add some little highlights to the eyes and dots for the cheeks and things like that. And then we're going to get ready to build our next critter. So here's kind of how it's looking so far. We have our cloudy sky background, we have our grassy border, our hedgehog, and our bumblebee. Now the ladybug face is kind of similar to the hedgehog. I did die cut it from vanilla malt cardstock, so we're going to take the same sugar cookie and pizza crust inks and ink it up. I almost think the combination of this gives that perfect kind of color combination I was looking for. I don't have a cardstock in this color, and so I tried to make my own. We're going to layer the black piece across the bottom and the top. This is very exactly the same as the bumblebee, actually. So just doing the same steps. We got some little different antenna that is going to go back behind the head on this one. And then the layering wing pieces. So there's red and black wing pieces. I've die cut these from Lawn Fawn Black Licorice and Chili Pepper cardstock. Again, some little pink cheeks. An embellishment wand comes in so handy here. I know I say that all the time when dealing with little tiny bits and pieces, but it is an invaluable tool if you like working with sequins, gemstones, small die cut pieces, anything like that. They're just so handy. That and some tweezers. I am using my new Spellbinders tweezers here for a lot of my project today. Now I am going to ink up the red portion of the bumblebee wings, the layering piece. I started with lobster ink. I don't think it's going to be dark enough. No, I started with chili pepper ink. I'm sorry. I don't think it's going to be dark enough. In fact, I really don't think the Schoolhouse Red that I ended up using from Simon Says Stamp is dark enough either. I probably should have maybe even used a darkish brown or maybe even a darkish purple over the red to make it show up. It always goes on so good, but then the dye ink absorbs into the cardstock, and if it's too similar to the cardstock color, it just doesn't show up. But that's okay. I wasn't really looking for tons of shading here, just a little depth and dimension, so it's fine. We're just going to layer the red on top of the black, and then we're going to adhere these back behind the ladybug body. And my dog is going to snore in the background because that's what he does. For the wings, we are also going to glue these to the back, but I kept noticing they weren't going to stay put very well, so I like to use my tweezers to just hold that down, hold it in place. Then I'll just do the same thing for the other side. I wanted to make this as even as possible because I'm kind of just manipulating the pieces to work for a flat style card. And I dropped it on my glass work surface and got glue everywhere. I was a gluey mess. I'll tell you what. In fact, my Lawn Fawn glue is the one that exploded everywhere, and so I switched glues. I don't know why it was doing that. It was bubbling up and out, so I think it was about empty. Sometimes it does that. We're just going to add the eyes and mouth. Just think this ladybug is so, so cute. Layer on our little mouth here. And then I did end up adding eyelashes. So I added eyelashes to the hedgehog. I added eyelashes to the ladybug and bumblebee as well. I think it gives it a little bit more of a feminine flair, and I just love dressing up their faces. So the newest member of the Tiny Gift Box collection is the frog, and it is so sweet. I die cut the frog pieces from cilantro cardstock, and I'm inking up with Noble Fur ink. This is enough darker ink on a lighter green cardstock that it shows up great. I love this combination together. I think it turned out really, really sweet. I ended up, normally I don't use the leg or arm pieces or whatever it might be that go on the sides of the box. So in this case, I would just use that froggish square piece and then the individual legs that go in the front. But I decided to kind of manipulate and position the legs back behind the box body. And I love how this turns out. Almost like it's sitting, and this is how you can see that, like the legs, you know, on the side. I don't know. I really like it like this. I thought it turned out really cute. Or as cute as a little frog can be, I guess. This is a funny story, and I honestly didn't think of it until just now. As I'm doing the voiceover. But when I was little, we grew up out in the country. My dad was a farmer, and we had this sandbox that my brother and I played in. And my mom, it was built out of wood. My dad built it and then, you know, filled it with sand and whatever. And on the outside, around the edges of the sandbox, my mom painted frogs. My mom is a really good artist. She can draw and paint and things like that. And she painted frogs on it. I can't believe I just remembered that. I wonder if there's a picture of that somewhere. I'm going to have to ask her. Anyway, that's completely random and not relevant, but this frog reminds me of that. So there I am going to add some little pink cheeks to our frog, and then I love the eye option. You could definitely inlay or layer on the eyes if you want, but I am going to use the bigger eyes because I think that works so cute for our frog. So I did black cardstock and then white on top. Look at that little face. Cute, cute. And then the little tummy piece is actually, I love this color of cardstock. It is kind of a bluish green, really. But it's the Sage Leaf Lawn Fawn cardstock, and I ended up inking up the edge of it with the same Noble Fur ink, but I like that little tummy piece there for our little two-tone frog. Then the little front feet, when you build the box, these all kind of fold out. They're really cute. I'll have to do some boxes here one of these days because they're really, really clever and cute, and I think they make a really cute gift or a little party favor or something like that. So I'm just going to glue I added a little Noble Fur ink to it first, and then I'm going to glue those to the front. There are some little spots. So there were spots on the frog's legs, but because those are hidden, because I manipulated the dies, I am going to just die cut the spots and then add a little trio of those to the front of our frog. There's a little crown you can do for the frog. I wasn't going to, and then I ended up die cutting it from some gold cardstock to add because I went back to a couple of previously released or older tiny gift box sets to find the little hair bow for the bumblebee and also some little hearts that we could use to scatter. Because you guys know me, I love little heart accents, and I decided to die cut them instead of using like clay ones today. And I found the perfect little heart accent for the card. So our critters are basically built. We just have finishing details now. That's going to be white pin detail, that's going to be eyelashes, and then of course we are going to stamp our sentiments or stamp and die cut to add to this design. The focal point is definitely the critters, but I want the sentiment, this is a big card, and I wanted the sentiment to take to be a part of the design and be kind of prominent. So I kept basically anything extra besides these critters. I didn't add a ton. I'm going to add a little trio of hearts, and I'm going to add a few little things to dress up my critters. But otherwise, it's the critters, a stenciled background, a die cut border, and some sentiments. And you can see we're going to be using this Sending Hugs sentiment in some form or fashion, but that just, I had it laid out because I knew that's what I wanted to use, but I'm not totally in love with this. I feel like I need something that's a little bit longer in length. I'm going to show you how I do that. You can see I've now added a few extra sentiments. I like to look at it before I commit. And then we're going to add some little dabs of glue. Those little spots I was talking about for the frog, those were die cut from Sage Leaf cardstock. And they are very teeny tiny, so I definitely recommend some sort of a embellishment wand or crystal katana for that. And then I haven't adhered anything to the background panel. You can see I've assembled the critters, but I haven't adhered the border or anything like that, and that's because I want to do any stamping and embossing first. In this case, we're going to be stamping and embossing Sending Big, the ampersand, and smiles on our dark green border. I'm going to prep it with a powder tool first, hopefully keep the embossing powder sticking just to what we're stamping. Then we're going to stamp that with the clear embossing ink and heat emboss with white embossing powder. I like how it's nice and big and bold. This is definitely a classic Lawn Fawn style sentiment. I love this. And then the great thing about this stamp set too, by the way, is that it can be used in a lot of different configurations. You don't have to use it just the way it is. This is the Long Distance Hugs stamp set. Forgot to mention that. And there's a few different styles of hugs as well. So if this one's too big for your design, you can always use one of the others. Now I am going to stamp the word hugs on white cardstock with Lawn Fawn Lobster red ink. I'm cleaning my stamps and waiting for the embossing powder to cool completely because you can see all that powder in the background. I want to take a dry microfiber cloth and buff away any of that excess powder because that really doesn't look good, I don't think, on that border. And I'm using a nice firm finger here just to kind of buff all that away. I think the hugs is going to be super, super cute there. Now, I did stamp and die cut the hugs, as I mentioned, with the lobster red cardstock. And it would be fine as is. But what we're going to do is we're going to stamp and emboss, not stamp and emboss, we're going to stamp and die cut that. And then we are going to die cut the hugs 2 more times and glue these one on top of another for a more dimensional sentiment. So that hugs is really nice and prominent. That's one of my favorite little hacks for getting a more dimensional greeting without having to use like foam or anything like that. Just gonna line that up. I'm gonna use a little repositionable tape, and I bumped it, so let's fix that before we die cut it. And then just run that through the die cut machine. And something I love about this sentiment is that it's very detailed. It die cuts very close to the word. I think you could almost die cut this and use this without the stamp if you wanted to. I think it would be worth a shot to try it. But I love that it's very, very detailed and nice and close to the stamping. We're going to put a little adhesive on the back of our border. I already have my hedgehog kind of where I want it to go, so I'm just going to leave him there and add some adhesive. We're going to place this along the bottom edge of our slimline background with the clouds stenciled. And then we're going to start adding our little critters here. Now, the bumblebee, hedgehog, and ladybug will all be tucked mostly back behind the grassy border. The hedgehog is a little bit in front, not quite all the way behind. And then we're actually going to put the frog up in front of the grassy border. I tried several different ways. I tried to put him a little bit back behind, but I thought you lost so much of the cute leg detail. If I wanted to put him back behind the grass, I probably would have left the legs off because that just gets lost. So he's in the foreground, which I kind of like anyway. I like them not to be all super the same. Then I've just glued those hugs one on top of another. And I'm going to glue that in place right there on my card. We have a few finishing details to add, you guys, but this card is just about finished. And you guys know finishing details are my favorite. I'm going to put some nice acrylic blocks, heavy acrylic blocks there on top of the hugs, let that dry for a minute. Then we're going to take the little bow from the Tiny Gift Box Deer add-on. So this one is from the little deer or reindeer set. And then from the unicorn and horse add-on, you can either make a unicorn or a horse from it. I am going to take the little heart trio. And those are all die cut from some Lawn Fawn Chili Pepper cardstock. I think the little red bow on the top of the ladybug's head is sweet. I like that as a little embellishment. I don't think I did it on camera, but the frog is going to get a little gold crown. I have a little trio of red hearts that I'm adding kind of over here on the upper right of the card. And I ended up die cutting these hearts one more time. I'm not going to use them scattered throughout. I kind of thought about it, but then, like I said, I just felt like it was too much. But we are going to add one little red heart to our frog, which I think is really cute and fun. We're going to adhere this to a slimline card base panel, which I think I've already done, and our card is all finished. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this Tiny Gift Box Critters Slimline style card featuring Lawn Fawn products. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here is another video featuring Lawn Fawn products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.